Hey everybody, how are you? I hope you're having a very good day and I hope you're enjoying yourself also. First, I want to take this time to say thank you for tuning in to me once again. Of course, as always, your viewership is very much appreciated, and I certainly would like to welcome you to another episode of TJ's Topics. And if I may, I'd like to let you in on a little secret. And that is, I happen to be TJ. That's me. And I tell you, I'm certainly glad to see you. I really am. Glad to be able to come before you with another good little show one more time. And I certainly am grateful to have this time with you. Believe me, it just does my heart good to be able to come on here and to spend a few moments with you, and as we share and discuss whatever it is that we may be thinking about, because who knows, some of you out there could very well be thinking about some of the same things that I find myself thinking about from time to time. And if that be the case, then I feel like this is a very good platform for us to share our thoughts, and feel free to comment at the end of the program if you have any thoughts about today's topic or anything else, and I'd be glad to reply to you. All right. So I'm not going to waste any time. Just before I tell you what my topic is for today, I would like to say happy 4th of July weekend to you. As I'm taping this is 4th of July weekend. And most of you would probably see this on Monday or whenever you watch it. Now, if it's past 4th of July, then disregard the 4th of July message. But I still hope you're having a good day. A good day just the same. And believe me, anytime you're able to have a good day, no matter what the occasion is, you know, it's a plus. I consider it that, and hopefully you and others do as well. Now, today I want to touch briefly on something that I've been thinking about, and to be honest with you, it really just came to me this morning. Well, I guess kind of last night a little bit, but it really didn't set in until early this morning, what I want to discuss today. And so that's where I just decided, well, I'll go ahead on and deal with that. And some of you out there may have had encounters with people such as this. And to be honest with you, I feel that in a way, some of us may have been guilty, or have been guilty, I'll say, of playing this role at one time or another ourselves. And we didn't know we were doing it. We didn't realize we were doing it. But once we learned better, then we had to get away from that. At least I hope that's the case, because you got some folks out here who still choose to do wrong even after having learned better. So shame on them if they're doing that. But nevertheless, when you learn better, you do better. And I hope that's what all of us are trying to do in this life. But my topic for today is talking out of both sides of your mouth. That's what I'm talking about today. Talking out of both sides of your mouth. Now, how do people do that? How is it that folks can like they said one thing and do another, or in the case of this, they'll say one thing to one group of people, and then they'll say something totally different to another group of people, but yet they're talking about the same thing or the same person. That's pretty much what it means to talk out of both sides of your mouth. And I don't know about you, but I've had encounters with a number of people who have done just that. And I'm gonna admit, I have been guilty of that myself. You know, when I was younger, I got involved in a lot of church gossip with the lady who I used to be a Sunday school teacher alongside of. She and I were co Sunday school teachers. We taught preschool and kindergarten Sunday school together for 5 years up until I left the church. And she used to make it her business to run down everybody in the church. You know, she would say one thing to them in church and then get on the phone late at night with me and say something else. And yet, you know, she grinned with them now. And of course, I know they say you don't supposed to speak ill of the dead. And I'm not. I'm just telling the truth because, you know, she's since passed on. But she and I were involved in a lot of stuff. And quite frankly, it didn't get like that until after her husband passed. And when he passed away, that's when it seemed like her wild side came out. And some people, even in the church, were sort of leery of the closeness that she and I had because they thought that perhaps she and I may have been secretly involved with each other. And Lord knows we were not, because she was way too old for me and I just didn't see her like that. No. She would have been nowhere near my type, believe me. And so she lived 6 years past her husband. And then she went on after that, about 3 years after I left the church, as a matter of fact. So, but once I learned better and I got away from all that mess, it made me feel a lot better. So, and that's the thing, when you get away from mess and get away from messy folk, you feel a whole lot better, because all they do is hold you back and pull you down. That's what those type of people do. And that's the reason why we have to be so careful when it comes to dealing with folk. You know, I don't care who it is and I don't care where it is. It can be kinfolk. And I can talk about that too, you know, talk out of both sides of the mouth. So I just don't have time for all that, you know, because life is way too short to be dealing with mess like that, you know. So again, we're talking out of both sides of our mouths. That's what the topic is for today. What does it mean to talk out of both sides of your mouth? Well, it's simple. It means to give completely different advice or opinions about something in different situations. You know, whatever that situation is, you may offer your thoughts and opinions and views on a particular subject matter. You know, you give certain thoughts and opinions to one person or a group of people, and they go along with it. But then you turn around and go over here and you give this group of people another set of thoughts and opinions, and they in turn go along with it. But when you think about it, somebody's being lied to. You know, somebody is not getting all of the truth. You may have one person or one group of people who is getting straight facts, but then you got another person or another group of people that's getting a bunch of, you know, fabrication, you know, and exaggeration. And quite frankly, I think that's unfair. You know, I don't think that it's a good idea to do that because, you know, eventually the truth is going to come out one way or another. I mean, they say what's done dark will come to the light, and and it'll come to the light when you least expect it, in a way that you definitely wouldn't expect. Now, there's also the phrase talking out the side of one's neck, and I'm sure most of you have heard of that as well. And that means to give an uninformed opinion, to fabulate, or to talk unwisely or unguardedly. And I can tell you firsthand from having lived here in West Memphis all my life that people are good at doing just that, giving uninformed opinions. Because you got a lot of folk around here. And I know it's not just West Memphis, it's all over the United States and other parts of the world as well. You know, different cultures and ethnicities. You know, I mean, it doesn't matter what your skin color is. It doesn't matter what your religion is, your political views, or anything else. People always have opinions on something. And oftentimes we don't ask for them. They just bring them to us. And I have found myself in that predicament on more than a few occasions, you know, especially in the workplace. You know, people love to bring garbage to you on the job. And speaking of which, doing the kind of work I do every day, and now I'm going into my 16th year of doing what I do. Garbage is the last thing that I need brought to me while I'm at work, because I'm trying to take garbage out and I'm certainly not trying to bring it in. So what I look like putting up with something like that, you know, it's ludicrous. It really is. And so, but you know, you got a lot of people out here who go for that. I mean, because one reason why I think they do that is because they don't have too much going on in their lives. You know, there's not much going on in their life, and they're not involved in anything. And even if they go to work, you know, they're just at work playing around. They may half do their job, and that should be the focal point of being there in the first place, is to do their job. And all that other mess can take a back seat. But no, you find more mess in the workplace. You really do. And other places as well, as I'm going to get to very shortly. Basically, when a person talks out of the sides, both sides of their mouth, they tend to be hypocritical. They also tend to be undependable and insincere. For example, they may speak highly of an individual in the presence of one group of people, but turn around and talk bad about them to another group of people. And you know that's not nice. I mean, there is no kindness in that whatsoever. And what makes it bad is a lot of times you have people who hold leadership roles in various places doing stuff like that. You know, they always want to come down hard on the subordinates, but I don't think the subordinates should be blamed for all the mishaps anywhere. I don't care if it's in the workplace or in a social club or school or church. You know, you got to look at the leadership, because 9 times out of 10, when something bad goes down or some some unpleasant situation arises, usually it falls back on whoever is in charge. They are the ones that are going to be dealt with for anybody else. They're the ones who people tend to look at when things happen. And then you have folk who let stuff like that happen and don't try to rein in on it because, they're just as much a part of the mess as anybody else. And stuff like that, you have to do like Barney Fife said on Andy Griffith, you got to nip it in the bud. I mean, that's what they ought to do, but sometimes folk don't. They just let it slide, just keep on letting it slide. And all it's doing is getting worse and worse. And when you allow anything to fester, when it does come to a head, oh man, it's going to be a hot mess. Now, people who like to talk out of both sides of their mouth, they're good at one thing, and that is they say different and contradictory things to different people so that people are left unsure and totally confused. And confusion is something that I try not to participate in. If I see where there's going to be some mess about to pop off, I'm getting out of Dodge because I just simply don't have time for that. They say that trouble is easy to get into, but it's hard to get out of. And I've been there. I've been in trouble, and all of us have. And we pray, Lord, if you get me out of this, I promise you I'm going to do right. I ain't going to do nothing else. I'm going to straighten up and fly right. We've all done that, only to find ourselves getting into another trap of our own creation. And that's basically what trouble is sometimes. And we talk about karma and what karma is. But we create our own karma. And I'm gonna take you back to a situation I had last year, and this is not talking about talking out of both sides of our mouth, but it's a problem that I had here in my apartment, particularly in the bathroom. Well, I messed around and flushed the little tidy bowl thing, what you call the little bowl fresh that hangs in the toilet bowl. It was one of the cheap kind. I got it Save a Lot, and it was plastic. And I thought that it was just going down and wouldn't cause a problem. But lo and behold, it did. And it stopped my toilet up so bad until I couldn't flush it at all. I mean, it was horrible. So what I had to do was, and I didn't want to bother the landlord about it, because I would have had to wait on them. And I said, nope. I made up in my mind that night in the bathroom that this is a problem that I created. And if I created the problem, I have got to be the one to solve it. And so I did. So I went to the hardware store and I bought one of those snakes, the toilet snake. And I brought it home and I took my time and I snaked that toilet out and got the little bowl fresh thing to pop on out of there, just went on down in the sewer. And finally, I was able to flush my toilet like it's supposed to. And I vowed to never make that mistake again. So it is with talking out of both sides of our mouth. I said all that to say that we have to be mindful of what we say to people and how we say it, because, everybody doesn't take things the same way. Whereas one person or one group of people may find humor and laughter, and they may laugh about a certain thing, but you got another person or another group of people who take things extremely serious. Oh man, and quite frankly, I have a hard time dealing with folk like that, because you never know what people's personalities are like until you get to know them. And then that way, once you get to know them, you know how to deal with them. Now, here's a list of people who are good at talking out of both sides of their mouth. And they are politicians. And we all know one very prominent politician who talks out of both sides of his mouth every chance he gets. I'm talking about, I'm not going to do, you know what? I'm going to stay away from that. I was finna call him a name, but I'm not. I'm going to sit here and do right. But I'm talking about our previous president, Donald Trump. He talks out of both sides of his mouth. And there are too many occasions for me to list, but we all know what happened on January the 6th. He was talking out of both sides of his mouth then, because when he stood out there and made that speech, telling them folk that they were going to march down to the Capitol, and he said that he was going to be with them. But how about he got into the vehicle that he rode in, and instead of him going down there with those people to the Capitol when they had that insurrection, he went on back to the White House and went in the dining room, sat down and watched the whole thing play out on TV, and didn't even try to call to tell those people to stop destroying the Capitol. Now, what kind of sense does that make? He lied. And politicians are good at lying all the time. That's how they get our votes. They have to lie to us and tell us what they're going to do. And we believe them, you know, we're all happy. Hey, we're excited. Oh, we're looking forward to it. But then once they get in the office, they completely forget about us. No longer is it about their constituents. It's all about them. They could care less about us. So they talk out of both sides of their mouth. Lawyers have been known to do that as well. You know, they may lie about a case or lie to protect their clients. And of course, they're going to lie if they're getting paid. I mean, anybody lie if they're getting some money. I mean, that's just how it goes. You know, if you're giving somebody some money, quite naturally, they're going to tell you what you want to hear. You know, people are good at that kind of stuff. Police officers, you know, they have the tendency to lie, you know, and talk out of both sides of their mouth. Two examples are the recent tragic killing of Tyree Nichols, you know, over here in Memphis. How those police officers did him, and they lied and tried to say that they didn't do that or such and such, you know, telling one side, or, you know, they say there are two sides to every story. But the world saw what happened, just like the world saw what happened to George Floyd. So there was no way that those officers could get out of what happened, because the whole world had seen it. I mean, we witnessed it for ourselves. We didn't have to be there on the scene. We saw the video. We saw it play out live on television. I mean, people all around the world saw that. So there was no way they could get out of it. Children can talk out of both sides of their mouths. You know, they can tell their mother one thing and then tell their father something else. Parents, they can do that too. You know, they can play that same card. They most certainly can. Neighbors, you know, spreading gossip around the neighborhood. You know, they'll say one thing about a person in the neighborhood to one person, then say something else about that same person to somebody else. That's gossip. And that causes friction amongst the neighbors. And that makes living in the neighborhood very unpleasant, uncomfortable, and it pisses you off, you know. And nowadays, see, we don't have the kind of neighbors that we had when I was growing up. You know, back then, when I was a child, neighbors were like family to you, and they treated you as such. They didn't mind helping you. They would reach out, you know, they give you a ride if you needed to go somewhere, or, you know, if you had food, they'd feed you, you know, they cook, let you come over and get a plate or whatever. They really looked out for one another back then. But neighbors are not like that today. Matter of fact, most of us don't even know our neighbors, because even right here in my apartment complex, I don't know these people. I may know some of their faces, like the ones that's been here ever since I've been here, but I don't know their names and they don't know mine. All they know is the apartment unit I live in, the vehicle I drive. You know, some of them may know where I work because they see my uniform, but other than that, they don't know me and I don't know them. So it is what it is. And like I said, we've talked about coworkers and how they do on the job, and supervisors, you know, they've been known to do that as well. And church members, you know, how much mess is in the church, you know, which is why a lot of people don't care to go to church now, because of all that mess, you know. And then you got those people that said, well, it's mess on the job, but you're still getting up going to work. But that's different. See, we get paid to go to work. We don't get paid to go to church. The church has always got their hand out. and see, that's that's what was on my mind while I was sitting up there today, you know, because I still go to church. I mean, I don't go for the same reasons that I went from early childhood up to age 35. You know, once I reached age 35, my reasons for attending church changed drastically. I mean, they took a 180-degree turn. No longer do I go to church for spiritual purposes. Now I go to church for social and recreational purposes. In other words, just to get out the house on Sunday and wear my clothes and stuff that I don't get a chance to wear all the time. That's the only reason why I go now. And it's my business, because, you know, it's my life and I'm content with who I am and where I am in my spirituality. And I'm happy. I'm at peace. So I'm not bothered by any of that stuff. You know, it's just something. That's all. So, and you do your thing, you know, just like the Isley brothers. It's your thing. Do what you want to do. And I tell anybody, you know, as long as you live your life and you're pleased with the life that you live, because look, when you come to the end of your journey on this earth, when your season of walking around on this planet has ran its course, there is nothing you can do to stretch it out any further. And so that's why we have to be content with what we have. Be grateful for whatever we have in the time that we have it, because none of this stuff is going with us. Not even the gossip that we spread, and the rumors and lies that we told, and none of that stuff is leaving here with us. That's stuff that people take part in while they're here on this planet. You know, a bunch of foolishness and, you know, mess and garbage and and all that kind of stuff. So that's why I've learned not to even be bothered with it. I just tune it out. A person who talks out of both sides of their mouth may be trying to please everybody by telling them what they want to hear, but in the end, at least some of them are being deceived. The bottom line is, people like that simply cannot be trusted. So if you know someone out there who talks out of both sides of their mouth, you know, they say one thing to you, then go behind your back and say something else to another person, know that you can't trust them any further than where you see them. Only trust them as far as you can see them. If they're right there in front of you, you can halfway trust them. But as soon as you turn your back, no, you know you can't trust them. And you can't trust them behind your back, because you don't know what they're capable of not just saying, but what they're capable of doing. No, so that's why that old saying, you got to feed people with a long handled spoon, there's truth to that. I've been hearing it all my life, and I know from experience that It is the truth. It's the truth for me. Well, I just want to take this opportunity to thank you one more time for tuning in to another episode of TJ's Topics. And I hope you enjoyed today's topic, talking out of both sides of your mouth. And hopefully we've learned from our mistakes in the past, and we won't uh, do that anymore now or in the future. But instead, we want to treat our fellow man with decency and respect, because that's how we want to be treated in return. So thank you one more time for tuning in. And I hope to see you again next time for another episode of TJ's Topics. And I certainly enjoyed you. This is Taryn Jerome Harris reminding you that every round goes higher and higher. And I definitely look forward to seeing each of you again on the next go round. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.